My name is Randy Rubenstein, and welcome to the Mastermind Parenting Podcast. At Mastermind Parenting, we're on a mission to support strong-willed kids and the families that love them. We're back. What's that
Hi.
from? What's that from? We're back.
I don't know. What's that from?
I don't know. It's from something. Anyway, hi, everyone. I am back here with my daughter, Avery Rubenstein. She's waving. If you're watching the video, if you're not watching the video, there was just complete silence. Hi. Hey. And we're here because I wanted to have a follow-up conversation about our conversation with, why am I blanking on his name? Mike. I know. If you're watching the video, you're seeing Avery's look of delight as if she's never seen the dog in the background before in her entire life.
It just takes her so long to get comfy. Look at her go.
She's settling in the background. That's Cheryl. She's a chunky little monkey.
She's our chunk monster.
She's on. I don't think it's PC to say diet. She's on a health regimen. The doctor told us she needs to take a few lbs off. Can you hear the snores in the background? No.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So so after we talked with the last Airbender creator and author of the book that we read, it was the last episode, in case anyone's curious about that conversation, that now we're having a follow-up conversation. But the reason we're having a follow-up conversation is because we read Mike's book, and it was written for young adults. So it's about a kid that's around the age of 14. And I just felt like I wanted to talk about how I think these books are so good for parents to read, because number one, especially for the young adult genre, like, it was a good book. And it took me back to, like, I think it's like, if it's a good story, whether it's a book or whether it's a movie, if you find yourself in a story, it's like you naturally tap back into what it was like when you were that age, right? And so I think reading a story or watching a movie that correlates with the age that your kid is, that you actually enjoy, I think it helps with empathy. It helps to truly be able, like, for a parent to see their kid's perspective, or to get curious about, what is going on with my kid? Why might they be doing it? I think it can be so hard to do if you aren't in touch with what it felt like when you were their age, and what you were thinking back then. I don't know. Is this sound jumbled or convoluted? Can you, yeah.
It's making me think of when I was in ninth grade and we read Catcher in the Rye in my English class with Mr. Gallagher. And he would, like, when we would read it as a class, like, assume the character of Holden, who's, like, kind of similar, like, unreliable narrator and, like, super jaded and similar to the main character in this book. And something about him assuming that character and, like, trying to understand where Holden was coming from felt empathetic, if that makes sense. Yeah. And it made the book more interesting to read too.
It did, because what? Like, give an example. Like, what would he do that made
He would, like Holden, I think, had a certain hat that he would wear. He'd put on the hat. He was goofy, but I mean, adorable. And he would just, like, kind of, like, sit in a reclined way and read the book. And it was like, oh, like, it's not like uptight English teacher reading the book. It's like someone trying to understand Holden's experience reading the book, like literally assuming the character.
Oh, that's so interesting. So it was like you, as the kid, in a teacher's class, and in a class where here's the adult, he's the teacher. It was a very different experience for you as the kid, just knowing that adult was getting in character and understanding the character, like truly embodying that character.
Right.
That's so interesting. So it must have made you feel more connected in that class because it wasn't like, oh, we're just here and here's this adult like making us read this story.
Right.
It's like, here's this adult in the story sort of with us, in these characters with us.
And it made a book in an English class. Like no one wants to read their books for their English class, but it kind of made it feel like role play a little bit and made it a little bit more fun as well. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think we experienced it even through TV shows. Like if you think of, you know, I mean, Gilmore Girls, like how often do we talk about Lorelai as if she like we know her?
Yeah,
Sometimes
she's like our friend.
she's our friend. Like sometimes you're like, I miss her. I just have to watch an old episode just to catch up with
Mhm.
her.
Mhm.
But that's why I think it can be so connecting when but I think it's like if I say, "Oh, it's very connecting to watch a show with your kid," or "It's very connecting to read a story that you're wanting them to read," so then you can truly embody and get back into the character. Remember, I think so often parents take that as, "Okay, now I'm just gonna, like, check this thing off the list."
No, it's about enjoying it together.
Right,
Yeah.
it's enjoying it together, right?
Mhm.
Like, even with the English teacher, like, he's, like, in that character, he's got the hat on, he's kind of, slumped back in his seat. Like, did you feel like he was enjoying
Yeah, I felt
telling
like
the story,
he
reading?
was having fun pretending to be Holden.
Yeah, it's like it's an authentic experience and we're in it together. And so it's like, I'm always a little hesitant to give really strong suggestions like, "Oh, you should read these books." But the thing is you could read the book and then be like, "Well, I read that book and then I told my kid to read it." And then you might have this agenda, like I'm talking to parents now. And then they have this agenda. How did you feel when the character like it that
Mm.
blows the whole thing?
Yeah. No, it's I feel like when I was younger, it was like I wouldn't want to watch a show with you that you weren't clearly enjoying. Like whenever I would watch like my shows, which were like Adventure Time and stuff, and to me they had really profound messages. I knew if I sat down and watched that with you, you would look like miserable the whole time, and it takes me out of it, you know.
Mhm.
But like with Gilmore Girls, you were like next episode, next episode, next episode. We binged it. And I was like, oh, she loves it. And honestly, the fact that you liked it so much, because I'd already watched the show,
Like 3
it
times, right?
like 3 times. Yeah, it made me. It's like how I rewatch Game of Thrones with everyone. I love when other people enjoy it.
Mhm. Cuz it's
Hmm.
fun to bond and connect through a story.
Right. And like, yeah, and to like have a shared experience.
I mean, think about like when we started watching Grey's Anatomy. I
Yeah,
mean,
you'd
that
already
was your
seen that.
yeah, years ago. And then we started I had but I'd only watched through episode 11 because, you know,
Yeah,
I couldn't recover from
season 11, not episode.
season 11. Season 11. I only watched through
Hmm.
season 11. Um but when we started watching Grey's Anatomy, it was your senior year and like it was COVID, it was I mean, no prom, lame graduation, like, all these things you had looked forward to all these years. And I mean, you didn't even get to have a prom.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah, like the month long trip that you were supposed to take at the end of senior year, like to Israel. I mean, it had been pumped up for so long that got
For
canceled.
since sixth grade, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that got canceled. And so everything, it was a bit bleak. And
It's a little bleak.
oh, and not to bring up hard things, but you were getting also a lot of disappointing rejections from colleges that,
Hmm.
right? Like, and it was like, what is happening here? Like,
Right.
right? And so that's when I was like, I think we should watch Grey's Anatomy together. I don't think at first you were that into it because it was like an old show.
Yeah, I wasn't. Although I saw how pretty Meredith was, and I was like, this show is so fun with their little friendship and um but it took me a second to get into, but I liked how even when I went away to school we would sync up episodes to watch. so
Mhm.
that and we would talk about it after. And it also put a limit on our binging, which was probably a good thing.
Yeah, that was good because we both, yeah, we're
Mhm.
we're not reliable in terms of controlling our impulses when it's something that
Mm-mm.
we're, but you do enjoy it more when you spread it out. The point is, I think that there was something about this, like getting back into the mindset of, especially with like young teenagers, right around that 13 or 14, or whenever the kid goes through puberty, basically. Because you didn't really go through it, because since you went through puberty later, you didn't go through that that difficult season. What are you laughing about, that I have to talk about
Calling
your
me
puberty?
out.
Is that embarrassing
No, just a late bloomer.
that you were a little tiny baby for way too
Mm.
long? Um, yeah, like, but at 13 or 14, when normal children go through puberty,
What?
I can't believe you didn't just call me out on that. That's like the
What? Calling me
the
a little tiny baby?
no, I said at 13 or 14 when normal people go through puberty, because I had to
Oh,
just like, I had to like beat a dead horse with that.
right. Yeah, no, that's really nice. Thanks.
Um, that's when their hormones are changing, and it's like teenagers, they become difficult. They challenge you, they're shut down, they isolate from you. Um, they are very hypersensitive to whatever it is that you are saying. Quite often they're like, they at 13, there is, and you might know more about this just based on your studies, like that is the stage of development when you're going from you're going through adolescence, you're going from childhood to adulthood. And so it really is a pruning away season of development. And
Mhm.
so just like how 3-year-olds are have just realized, oh, I'm not just an appendage of my mom, I'm my own person. So we offer 3-year-olds two positive choices a whole lot of the time, because we just want to empower them in easy, simple ways, because their job as little developing humans is to say, I do it myself, no, or I didn't want that one, or why do we have to do that? Like, they're supposed to be challenging, because that's, they're figuring out where you stop, where they start, how much power they have in the world. Like, that's part of the deal. And I think understanding that helps parents to not take it so personally when little kids are being difficult, where it's like, and we're doing this thing, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm not going to engage with that behavior. I'm not going to give this airtime. And the same thing with 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds. It's like, if we have kids when they start to go through puberty not challenging, that is, like, you should feel alarmed about that,
Right.
because you're supposed to be figuring out, like what is my identity growing into, and you're supposed to be there, the kid is supposed to be questioning,
Mhm.
like and pruning away extraneous information, because they're hopefully becoming their own person, right?
Mhm.
And so when they are 13 and 14 and they're mouthy, and they're, you know, trying to see how nasty they could talk to you, or, um, just whatever it is. And then the parent, it was just like in that story that we read. It was like this poor kid was going through all these hard times. His dad, in the story, his dad had like gone on this big hiking trip, his mom, and not come back. His mom was, like, she had her own issues going on. She was just this, it was just all about her chain smoking and avoiding dealing with as much as she could avoid. She was worried about money. Um, and he just felt totally unsupported.
Mhm.
And and so, you know towards the mom, he was surly, he was difficult, he was holding up in his room a lot, he was isolating. But, like, think about how many parents of teenagers are looking at their kid who is shutting down, isolating, being mouthy, And it's like, what the hell is wrong with you? What has
Right.
happened? You know, and so to go back into a story like that and then to remember, oh yeah, I was once 13 or 14 too.
Mhm.
I felt like this too. There's actually probably more going on than I
Right.
realize, you know?
And the way that a story will paint things out in a way that you can't always see from being like the person dealing with someone going through stuff is like this. I mean, the story, like, it goes through themes of like grief, death, relationships, and like I remember being 14 and being like, wait, I'm scared to die, and why are my friends treating me like this? And boys, like, I don't understand. And it's like it kind of situates yourself in someone who's like dealing with all that for the first time. And so you can have a little empathy and be like, this is the first time someone's having to deal with these themes in their entire lives. And like, that's super overwhelming.
Yeah. I think it's it, I feel like reading, or even, I mean, if you're not a reader, even watching something, and anything that takes you back to what it felt like being a kid. Like I did this with a dad recently who was going, he was doing one of our accountability assignments, which is what I call homework.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody calls it homework, and I call it, I correct everyone and call it accountability assignments. But I'm like, I'm not your teacher. Like, these are just for yourself to hold yourself
Right.
accountable. So anyway, he's doing this assignment, and one of the things of like what triggers you a lot, and he said something like, well, when my daughter, she really, ever since we joined the program, she's not very violent, but she had been very violent. And the only times, every once in a while, she'll like get violent with our dog. And it just triggers the hell out of me.
Yeah. I
And
remember you telling me about this.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and so I started asking him some questions, and then he remembered when he was 4, going through this period where he had, you know, like it was like little beloved animal after animal, whether it was like guinea pigs and um maybe like a fish or whatever it was, but he was
Right.
4 and they kept dying. And he
It's
said,
like our
and
house.
can you just, okay, we'll just side note right here. Can you name all the animals that we've had over the years?
We had Spike, who was a bearded dragon. We had a lot of little turtles, I remember. We had like 18 guinea pigs because they kept having babies, Rocket, and that was my first experience with death. Um, with
What was
gruesome
the, it
death.
was, wait, it was Rocket, and what's the name of the hockey team?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it
I
was,
don't remember the other one's
yeah,
name.
yeah.
Yeah, but they would breed like rabbits. We had Wheezy, we had DJ, we had Blue and Velcro Kitty. Blue, who I also was a little aggressive with to make that dad feel better. I would hold him in my mouth by the scruff of his neck.
Yeah.
Um, I read too many of those Warrior Cats books.
Yeah.
Loved
That
those
was a
books.
I loved that picture where you literally thought you were still a cat. And then I showed it at some point. I think you must have been in high school or something. You were like,
I was way
Mom,
too old to be doing all that. It was
I
like,
know, but you were only like probably 10 or 12 when you did, maybe 10 when you did it.
yeah,
Don't you
that's
think?
old. That's like kind of
Yeah.
old.
Yeah. But when I found the picture of you holding Blue with the scruff, like as if you were the mama kitty, I want to say you were in high school, and I thought it was like hilarious and adorable. And you
Oh,
were
I
like,
couldn't.
Mom, oh, you were like, that's like, don't ever show that picture to anyone ever
Oh, I
again.
sent it to my friends recently, and they were like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?"
So good. So good.
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, yeah. So wait, I feel like you're missing some. I feel like at some point there was a baby duck or a chicken or something.
I think there was a chicken, and we also had all of our fish. We had Sylvia, who lived for a long time until she ended her life. Um, and Alec had a ton of fish, and he kept them alive. He was
Kodak.
the best.
Kodak.
Kodak. There were some other names that we're not going to say on the internet. Um, but it was, yeah, he was the best at keeping the animals alive.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, you forgot about Corduroy.
Oh yeah, I had a hamster for like 5 years, and he was a little escape artist, and would like we would buy. That's why we got the cats, remember? Because we were going to buy a reinforced cage because he could get out of every cage, and eventually I resorted to duct taping them shut because he would go under our dishwasher and chew through the wires of our dishwasher.
Or hide in the walls. Remember, you go all the way over across our
Yeah,
house to the piano room.
he was like the littles. I found him one time in Corey's secret room upstairs.
Yeah, he was a complete escape artist. Okay, we digress. I don't even remember where we were before. Oh,
You're
about the
talking
dad.
about, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so he's like, it just incenses me if I ever see anyone being cruel to little kids or women. He's such a good guy. You would love
Hmm.
this man. Or children or women or pets or animals. And 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 so once we started talking about like little him at 4 years old and like where it kind of came from, and it like shifted him a little bit into his, what did 4-year-old him, like he couldn't make sense of the all these pets that he loved dying, and his parents didn't know, his mom didn't know how to sort of shepherd him through death. And so he was this little 4-year-old, is everything I love just going to die? Like he says that to his mom,
Hmm.
and she, his memory doesn't remember like her like hugging him and holding space um and helping him through that, right?
Hmm.
And so, but like even just tapping into that story, it was like he went back into 4-year-old him a little bit. And now all of a sudden, when we're talking about the daughter who has really done such an amazing job with, not using other people as her human punching bags when she's dysregulated. Like she's really,
Right.
they've gotten a ton of structure in the house and the boundaries and blah 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 blah. And so she's not being violent, but the one place when she's dysregulated,
It's animal abuse.
or or when she maybe wants her dad's attention, she wants it,
Hmm.
she knows it's like, it's like, and she's not consciously doing it, but for some reason the last little bit is there's a
Right.
pattern of where she
Yeah,
takes out her anger on her kid, on her dog.
he Pavloved her into hit the dog, get attention from dad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
accidentally, I think you might have
Oops.
Pavloved that. I mean, I think that happens with older siblings to younger siblings all the time, because
Hmm.
if the older kids, it's like if they once they are Pavloved into it of, I just want mom's attention. I want mom and dad's attention, and I'll take good, bad, whatever. Attention is attention. And when I'm a jerk to my siblings or hurt them, like you can rest assured that I'm going to get their attention. And so it ends
Right.
up, right, like being that Pavlovian pattern.
Hmm.
But I think even just like going into it, it was like then when we shifted back to the daughter and talking about like, okay, we're going to disrupt this pattern and let's figure out why the pattern's even here, because it could be a number of different things. Like he was now at a place where he could actually look at that because he had gone back into that mentality. Sorry, it's
Right.
a little boring. It's a little boring.
No, it's okay. I just didn't sleep great.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, nothing.
Okay, I think we beat a dead horse on why it's important to, or why it can be a helpful tool to read books that, or stories, or watch movies, somehow get truly into a story that will take you back to what it felt like when you were a kid.
Hmm.
Um, to be able to show up with your kids with more empathy and truly see their perspective. Like feel it. It's not
Right.
like I'm just going to memorize this script and see your perspective. It's like, no, I really remember what it was like to be there. I
Uh-huh.
know. There's so much performative parenting. I'm like, we're not doing that here. We're not, y'all
Right.
don't ask me one more time for the freaking scripts.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so now we're going to segue into why you didn't sleep well last night. And then before we started recording, Avery was telling me about her dream, and she had had a stressful night. Okay, well, I'm going to let you talk.
Okay. I had a stressful night. I'm applying to grad school right now, and I have to get a certain amount of letters of recommendation. And I got an extension to submit by 9 o'clock my time last night. And I've been texting my recommender every day for the past 5 days. Please submit, please submit. She would always say, doing it tonight, doing it tonight. Wouldn't get it done. By the time it's like 7 o'clock last night, I'm like freaking out. And like pretty much spam texting her, um, calling her. I'm sure she had like 9 missed calls, 8 missed calls from me, and on the verge of a panic attack. My boyfriend's trying to hold space for me, but I'm just like kind of, in panic spiral. And then at 8:45, she calls me. She's like, I just got home. I didn't have service. Doing it now. Whatever. So it's done. Even after she submitted it and there was relief, it did not lessen the anxiety in me. Like I had so much adrenaline from like I was just freaking out so much. And so then I went to bed, fell asleep, and I had this dream where I'm with my brothers and we're playing this video game, like a Call of Duty type video game, which I'm horrible at, so it's already anxious. Like I'm button mashing, they're really good at it. I keep dying, like not a good dream. And then they're like, Avery, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, let's watch Dancing with the Stars. And the Dancing with the Stars episode was like this weird episode where it was like an ode to women, and it was all of these like dancers pretending to be these famous singers, these famous female singers, like singing these empowering songs from the discography of those singers. And my little brother's like, this is dumb. Like, why are we watching this? Like, this is stupid. And my older brother was like, you don't understand how important this is. Like, right now is a really hard time for women in this country. And, like, we need to hear these messages, blah, blah. And I remember in my dream, I was, like, really surprised and really relieved that he would say something like this. And then I told my mom about it. And she was like, oh, how interesting. Your body working through emotions that were residual from the night before, if you want to get into that, mama.
Well, that was your dream last night, and it was
Mm-hmm.
after, so she had this whole, crazy evening, so much adrenaline, so much panic, so much anxiety, waiting for this recommendation. And then she had a hard time settling down for sleep. She finally settles down for sleep. She has this, and I said, what were the two main emotions you had in the dream? And I said, especially that part with Alec. And she said, surprised and relieved. And I said, and how did you feel about, you know, this situation with the recommendation? Number one, that this person that you really thought you could count on hadn't gotten it in. And then by the end of the night, and Avery said, surprised. And that she hadn't done it. Like, who, I mean, it's like you can't imagine if somebody's counting on you for something and you promised it, and the stakes are pretty big, like just
Right.
like
It's like my dream
like being,
school.
yeah, like being scatterbrained, and so surprised that, because she's really a nice lady, and loves you and is super appreciative of all that you have done, right? So it was
Mm-hmm.
she kind of acted like it was her, it was like her pleasure to do
Yeah,
this
she
thing
was
for you.
like, oh my God, I'm so excited to write this for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So surprised, and then it finally got in, relieved.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and so the reason we're talking about this is, I said, so interesting how the brain works, right? Like, even though like your dream was something totally different, but
Right.
yeah, you were just, your brain it hadn't finished working something out, or it hadn't released all these emotions that you were feeling. And so
Right.
you go to sleep and it keeps working.
And you know
What
what's
were you going to
interesting
say?
is
Hmm.
Corey, for me, with women's rights and things like that, he's usually the one I rely on to be the ally. So there was a disappointment in his character as well in my dream.
Mm. Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. That's so interesting. And so then I had to go and dig through my cabinet and pull out the Berenstain Bears and the Bad Dream. And I said, "Do you remember this book? Do you remember reading it? I mean,
I mean, I've definitely read it and I remember the cover of it, but I don't remember what it says.
okay. Well, I was rereading a bunch of these Berenstain Bears books recently, and so I'll just give a quick recap of it goes through like their day and all the things they're playing with, and they saw a Space Grizzlies movie.
Hmm.
And then they're creating their whole Space Grizzlies brother and sister, and it's all about the Space Grizzlies. And then um, he says, "Want to play Space Grizzlies?" And she says, "No way." And then he says, "Oh, come on, I'll play any game you want if you play Space Grizzlies with me." And she says, "Any three games." Which three? Paper dolls, jacks, and beanbags. Um, He says, "Give me a break." She says, "Take it or leave it." So he took it. And after some lively sessions of paper dolls, jacks, and bean bags, it was time for Space Grizzlies. And he says, I'm Sleezo, evil king of the universe. Y'all for sure love this book.
Hmm.
Evil king of the universe, roared Brother, calling all spaceships, seek and destroy the planet Mongongo, home of my sworn enemy, Hero the Magnificent. And then Sister says, "Oh, no, you don't. I'm Hero the Magnificent. One touch from my sleep wand and your evil ways will be ended." They played until Mama called them for dinner. So then they go on, and that night, then so when they go to the movies the next evening, Mama, Papa, and Sister got in line for the Magic Toes, which is some movie about ballet, and Brother joined a bunch of his friends in line for Space Grizzlies. Um,
I
and
remember this
so it
book.
goes on. Yeah, so it goes on. It talks about the Space Grizzlies and the two different stories. And then it was dark when the Bear family got home. So it was off to bed for the cubs. It was already late for Sister, and she went right to sleep. But Brother was so excited by the movie that he lay awake for quite a while. He was just about to doze off when Sister woke up screaming. "Help!" she screamed. "They're after me." "Who's after you?" asked Brother. "Space Grizzlies," she wailed. "Thousands of them." "Calm down, silly head. It's only a dream," he said. But Sister leaped out of bed, ran into Mama and Papa's room. The little silly Brother thought, "Imagine being afraid of a dopey dream." Then he yawned, turned over, and went to sleep. Mama and Papa tried to calm Sister. They took her into their bed and hugged her. Remember that picture? So cute.
Hmm.
"Tell us about your dream," said Mama. "Dream?" Sister said. "Yes," said Papa. "You must have had a nightmare. That's the word for a bad dream." "But it was so real," she said, calming down a bit. "That's how it is with dreams," he said. "It's as if they're really happening, but they're not. They're just in your mind." "Can you tell us your dream?" asked Mama. "It was awful," Sister said. "I was a ballet star dancing on my toes, and then the stage turned into a giant beanbag board, and the Space Grizzlies came out of the beanbag holes and chased me, and I fell down one of the holes. I kept falling and falling, and then I woke up. It was awful," she wailed again, and buried her face in Mama's nightgown. "I'm sure it was, sweetie," said Mama, "but it was also very interesting." "Interesting," Sister said in a puzzled voice. "Oh, yes," said Mama. "You see, even though you go to sleep, your mind keeps right on thinking, but it doesn't think in a sensible way. It takes all the things you were thinking or were nervous about during the day and puts them together all jumbled up like a mixed up jigsaw puzzle." "You mean like the ballet dancer from the movie?" said Sister. "Sure," said Papa. "And the beanbag board from playing beanbags with Brother," she said. "And the Space Grizzlies," began Mama. "Were from playing Space Grizzlies with Brother and from seeing the movie poster," Sister said. "Exactly," said Papa. "Say," she said, "that is interesting." That's when they heard Brother. "Help!" he screamed. "They're after me." And then he goes on. But it was so real. "Of course it was," said Sister. "That's the way dreams are. Let me explain it to you." And she did. I
Yeah.
mean, I was like, "Oh, that's where the explanation came from originally,
Hmm.
was explaining how, the way our brains are and what dreams are really about." Like, It's like it's so normal for you now to be like, I had this dream. And then for me to be like, yeah, it sounds like a lot of, and didn't you say that Baxter, like before you went to sleep, he was
He was
playing
playing.
video?
I was sitting in here or reading while he was playing Call of Duty.
I
Mhm.
mean, it's exactly the same thing as that story.
Right.
I know. I was so like, oh my gosh, there's the original source of how to explain to a kid that has a nightmare, what happens when you're dreaming.
Right.
And for people to remember that you don't accidentally gaslight the kid. Oh, monsters aren't real, or that was just a dream, or you're awake now. Like
Mhm.
in that book, they're like, Mama's like, oh, can you tell me about it?
Right.
And right. And then she's like, it's really interesting, actually. And
Mhm.
then she
They provide an
explains,
explanation. Yeah.
yeah. And
Mhm.
I think many of us don't know that information. I know.
Mhm.
Those
I know it's
Berenstain Bears
hard.
books.
It's hard to because for me it feels so like obvious to just be like, well, this is why that happened, instead of like being like it's fake, But I guess people need to learn those tools. Everyone should read the Bears and Bears books.
It seems obvious to you because that's just what comes naturally because you're like,
Hmm.
duh. Yeah, it's
Even with Baxter when he has a nightmare, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I had a weird dream," and I was like, "Tell me about it." He was like, "Why?" I'm like, "Because it'll tell you a lot about how you were feeling, and he'll tell me, and it'll be like the most stressful dream in the world." I'm like, "Sounds like you're feeling a little stressed." And he's like, "Oh." I'm like, "Obviously, like I don't understand."
there's so
But
much information in
there's
dreams.
so much
I know.
information in dreams.
I know. It is
Hmm.
interesting. Okay. Well, thanks for coming on and talking about
Yeah,
all this with me.
of course.
Yeah. Any
Hmm.
final thoughts?
I just think if anyone's not watching the video, it was really funny because she was reading it and you kept looking up at me like this. You have to read it.
Why do you think I was doing that?
I know you're trying to gauge my you. It's the same way that if you watch a TV show with my mom, she watches you. You love other people's reactions to things. You're like, it's so funny.
It's so true. If
It's
I'm
like I
like
have a
laughing, it's like not enough. I want to look and make sure that you like we're sharing this experience together. You're in it with me.
my friend Riley does the same thing, and when I watch TV with her, I feel her gaze burning into the side of my face, and I just stare straight at the TV. I give her nothing.
Well, Corey does the same thing. So I don't know. I think it's natural because he does the exact same thing. In fact, he makes me self-conscious when I watch with him because you know how I can get scared very easily and jumpy.
Yeah, she couldn't finish Les Mis. It was too
I've
anxiety
watched it
inducing.
before. I've watched it before. But we were watching Goodfellas on the plane, Corey and and I hadn't seen it in a long time. And that movie's pretty violent. And so it's like
Super violent.
something, yeah, like something would happen and it would just be a natural reaction where I would jump or like get startled. And he like paused it and he's like, stop it right now. You're ruining
Because
it.
it's a little shocking. Like Baxter does the same thing. It's like anytime something scary happens, his arms are up and he's full body reaction. But I noticed that I feel like it takes you out of TV sometimes because you're nervous about other people's reaction. Like when we were watching Wicked,
hmm
you were nervous about if Corey was enjoying himself rather than.
It's so true. It's
Hmm.
really yeah, it's really true. Like I couldn't because I knew that he sort of reluctantly went with us. And he also
Hmm.
is like, I'm not a fan of musicals. And I'm like, but you liked La La Land? And he's like, yeah, but I think that was the exception. So he kind of begrudgingly went with us.
It's definitely the musical of
Yeah.
musicals. It was not musical light. I mean, it's
No, but
Wicked.
now I'm obsessed with Ariana Grande. I think she's the
She's a
talent of your
talent.
era.
Hmm.
Mm,
Yeah, she's the best. It was
yeah.
just such. I can't. I've listened to. It's all I listen to is the soundtrack from that movie.
I need to on Spotify.
on Spotify.
Yeah.
So good.
So good. So good.
Hmm.
And I can like read all the lyrics.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's going to be glorious. Okay. Well, until next time, bye
Bye.
everyone. Bye. Thanks for listening today, guys. I hope you picked up some tips, tools, maybe some baby steps for creating more balance and boundaries in your life. And I just wanted to let you know, if you want to continue moving the needle forward in creating this for yourself, having a happier household, I want you to go to my website and check out mastermindparenting.com. We have 3 beginning programs, and if you need some accountability and more support, then please look for the one that would be a good fit for you. And as always, we're on all the social channels under Mastermind Parenting. On Instagram, it's mastermind_parenting. And, you know, periodically I do pop up on different Instagram lives, Facebook lives, where I give you teaching and coaching, and I love engaging with you live to help you help your strong-willed kids so that they can feel better, because when they feel better, they do better. And I love, love, love getting to know you guys. So thanks for listening. If you like this podcast, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Super, super appreciative.